Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 361 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weird Beard, and with me tonight, she's the greatest hostess in the entire universe and media legend, Aaron Paulette. How you doing, Aaron?
So the reason Weird rushed through that introduction is because he flubbed it 3 times. And I'm guessing his thinking was if he did it fast, there would be fewer chances of making a mistake.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. I would like to speak to my lawyer.
It'll show up in the blooper reel.
Am I being detained?
Yes. Yes, you are.
Technically.
But I mean, you're not broadcasting. You're traveling.
Yes, I'm in my road canoe.
So how am I doing? Wow, it's certainly been a week, and especially the weekend. This is the sort of thing we talk about in the main topic. And I'm just going to save that.
Yeah, no.
Really, about the only thing I have to add is that I am not as bad as I thought I would be with all of this. And I think I haven't been in very many fights, but there are times when you get hit and instead of just giving in, it sort of goes, okay, now we're doing this. And I kind of feel like that's what happened. And so, at least for now, I feel very motivated. And it was good that I was able to accomplish something rather than just helplessly, there's nothing I can do. So, I hate that it took something awful like this to bring me back to some degree of normalcy. But I'm going to write it for as long as I can and hopefully be productive and make the change I want to see in the world. So that's how I'm doing, Weird. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've obviously I've been obsessing about all the stuff that we're going to be talking about in the show, but yeah, no, but things are going overall well. My daughter's going back to school and adjusting well to that. Every year she gets better at transitions. Like every year we worry that like, oh God, it's going to be another rough one. But, and then every year it's never as bad as we expect. So this is this is good news. And, yeah, spent some good time with my family this weekend and, read a lot of morbid articles about the topic that we are going to talk about. But you know what? Let's start out with some good news, Aaron. As a Floridian, you must be over the moon at this news about this court case.
I am. Don't get me wrong. I am just... I think gobsmacked would be a good word here. I didn't see this coming, and then the hits just kept on coming. So what we're talking about is that Florida has ruled that the law against open carry within the state is unconstitutional. And I found out about that, I'm pretty sure on Wednesday, before Charlie Kirk was murdered. And I thought this was really cool and really interesting. But my hope was tempered. Because, okay, the appellate court has not just thrown out the conviction, but vacated it and remanded it and all that good stuff. And so, all right, this person who had been convicted of open carry in 2022, the appellate court said, yes, in light of Encircle v. Bruin, this law is unconstitutional, and so we are, declaring him innocent, we are acquitting him, and the law is unconstitutional. And I go, okay, that's great, but the law is still on the books. And just because a court has declared that it's unconstitutional doesn't mean that the police are going to stop arresting people for it. because there is a procedure and you have to repeal the law. Okay, great. But then there were sheriffs of various counties that are going, yeah, in light of this, we're just not going to enforce this law. And one of those sheriffs was my favorite sheriff in all of Florida, and that'd be Florida Grady
Judd. Yeah.
Grady Judd. Yeah, I almost said Grady Polk, but no, he's Grady Judd of Polk County. And he's ridiculously pro 2A. And so he was one of them, and he even did a video on, okay, here's what you need to know. And so, all right, this is good, and especially since the sheriff of my county and the county that I frequently travel to said they weren't going to enforce it. Okay, this is even better. Not that I necessarily plan to open carry, but I like having options. And then this culminates with a statement by the Florida Attorney General, who says, who has instructed prosecutors and police to stop enforcing this law. Police don't arrest people for this, and prosecutors don't prosecute for this. And so, even though the law is on the books, it's a dead law. It is now meaningless. And I did not expect Florida to move that quickly because we had been dragging our feet for so long. I remember telling people that Florida is not going to go any sort of open carry until Georgia does. And I was right. Georgia went open carry, and then I'm not sure how many years later, Florida grudgingly went... no, it didn't go open carry. It went the permitless concealed carry. And so I thought there would be many, many more years before this happened. And then things just happened with speed, and that's really fantastic. And so now this means that there are 47 states that allow open carry in some form. And that is absolutely wonderful. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, it is absolutely awesome, and I don't really have a lot to add except for, like you, I'm not the hugest fan of open carry. Number one, as an ambassador for the Second Amendment, I want to pick and choose when I am representing the Second Amendment and not be just constantly there. So by open carrying, you've always got to be on your best behavior. You've always got to be, the kind of person that you want the world to see. That, not that I ever really am not, but it's just I like that. And then also it is an advantage. There's been many instances, Columbine being one of the best, is the fact that they knew where the gun was, in the school, and they made it a point to stay away from the cop and engage the cop from an advantageous position. And I think it is it's really herd immunity is concealed carry, because if you know that people are carrying guns, but you don't know who's carrying guns, you're just not going to mug anybody.
Yeah, concealed carry is herd immunity against crime.
Yeah.
That sounds really smart. I wonder who thought that up.
Oh, let's see. I think that person might have been the greatest hostess the world has ever known.
Oh, well, that explains it. Thank you.
I like to quote the masters. But yeah, and so there's all that. But open carry, number one, it is absolutely cruel that Texas until recently had a ban on open carry and Florida had a ban on open carry, because those states are hot for better parts of the year. So the idea that you have to dress over a firearm in those states is absolutely cruel. But and the same thing goes with actually.
I mean, at least with us, there was no rule against printing. We could print all we wanted. I don't think Texas had that ability. I think you had to completely obscure it. So that's worse. I don't know.
And then on top of that, this is now I'm showing my age. But when I first started in Second Amendment activism, Wisconsin was one of the few states that completely banned concealed carry, but they didn't issue carry permits, but you could open carry a firearm legally. So you could open carry a pistol. But in Wisconsin, a state that like completely freezes over for 6 months out of the year, to be forced to open carry a gun, it can get very, very challenging, especially when you realize that even a standard open carry rig, you suddenly throw a parka over that, it's going to cover it. And so the fact that they had a ban on concealed carry and Florida and Texas had a ban on open carry is just cruelty and just a logistical nightmare. But also any place that has a ban on open carry, not only is it against open carrying, actively strapping on a gun in a way that everyone can see, but it's also a ban on, hey, I just bent over to pick up a cereal box off the bottom shelf of the grocery store, and that shirt did the poing up over the butt of my gun, and so now all of a sudden the butt of my gun's exposed. That's, if you get caught and the cops call that, or somebody takes a picture of that or something like that, you can go to prison, and that's not okay. And so it's also works well for accidental exposures. Oh, you know, I mean, there's so many times people have wardrobe malfunctions. I've been out in the middle of nowhere and had the button pop off my fly and had to run a piece of string through my pants or grab a safety pin somewhere just to keep my britches up. You have wardrobe malfunctions where, you know, a button may pop off something or something may rip, and now all of us, or something snags on something, and now you suddenly open carry. You didn't intend to open carry, but that's what you're doing. And so now that is not a crime. So even if you're not a person who open carries, and maybe you're someone who says, I would never open carry, I can pocket carry a 365 or something like that and be perfectly fine for my carry. I would never need to open carry. Well, there may come a time when your super duper secret squirrel concealed carry rig doesn't work out. And so this protects you. I think Tam had a great line, called it concealed lazy, on the I'm concealed carrying, but I'm not going out of my way about it. Okay. That's enough good news. Let's get,
we've stalled long enough.
Let's get to the elephant in the room. You said it right off. That was September 10th. Charlie Kirk was speaking at which Utah school was that? I get the names confused. Do you remember off the top of your head?
I do not.
But he was in Utah. He was at an event where essentially he was sitting in an amphitheater and taking questions from the crowd. I don't know if he had a speech at the beginning. I'm honestly speaking, I was not that familiar with his work. I had seen him in passing a few times, but he was not someone who I really knew all that well before that happened. Again, showing my age.
So this was in Utah Valley University in Orem.
And so, so he was there and in an amphitheater, and at least at the moment that we're going to be talking about, he was fielding questions from people. He was actually specifically talking about the trans concealed carry ban, or the trans weapon ban that was proposed, and the prevalence of transgender spree shooters. And in the middle of fielding this question, a bullet hit him, I believe, in the neck. I haven't really heard the full autopsy report. There was some speculation. Was he wearing armor? I don't think he was, but he ended up getting hit in the neck, and more than likely died almost instantly. There was a lot of talk that, he's been rushed to the hospital, and they were giving him emergency surgery and things like that. But I think anybody who saw the video, and of course there was lots of people recording at that event, so there was a video from a huge number of angles of this happening. And I happen to be a type of person who actually takes comfort in watching an event, because I get detached from the horror of it and just get very clinical. And so I was just watching and seeing what I could glean from it. But he ended up shooting, and anybody who's seen much knows that was a lot of blood, and likely he was not going to survive. And unfortunately he did not. And he leaves behind, I mean, he was only 31 years old. He leaves behind a wife that's approximately that age and 2 pretty small children. I think the oldest is like 3. That's the part that really gets me. Every time I see the tributes where it's him holding his kids, the waterworks immediately happen. So yeah, so that happened. Almost immediately there was a person detained within the amphitheater, and there was talk that they might be the shooter, and they were saying some weird stuff. I haven't actually heard anything about that first guy that was at the top of the stairs. But if he was just a nut, or if there was some confusion or something was going on with that guy. But that guy was detained and ended up letting go. There was pictures of somebody that had either a BB gun or a 22 with a suppressor on it in their car that was being talked to, but that person was also just detained but not arrested. And now there's somebody in custody. They believe it's them. They say they've got a bunch of forensic evidence, and he was on top of one of the buildings. I believe it was from the rooftop where he was down to where Charlie was. It was, I think, 140 some yards shot going down, and he at least they've recovered a rifle. And the rifle was a 30-06, definitely a Mauser style. I say Mauser. I'm not sure if it was a commercial import or if it was just a Winchester Model 70, which is pretty much a Mauser pattern. But it was an older bolt-action hunting rifle with a scope that was used. And there were, of course, political statements written on the cartridges.
One of the things that I have heard, but I have not substantiated, because sifting the signal from the noise is difficult in these stages, but you've got people or sources that were saying that there were, pro-trans statements on the cartridges, and you've got other people who are saying these cartridges are Turkish ammunition, and the TRN on the base indicates that they were made in Turkey, and it doesn't have anything to do with trans.
Yeah,
that's not just the manufacturing code.
That was an early rumor that was the ammo, and I don't even know if the photographs that were shown of the ammo was in fact ammo recovered at the scene or not. But there was extensive stuff. There's actually the governor of Utah actually read off those, and I will say to put a little bit of lightness to that, it was a lot of meme goofiness. Like there was a command prompt from Helldivers in there, and the governor reading off "Uwu" off of one of the cartridges really does crack me up every time, because he just was reading it just straight in. I don't even know if he knows what it meant. But no, there was definitely stuff inscribed on the cartridges, and it was definitely not a interpretation of that TRN that's on some Turkish ammunition. But there's definitely a speculation that this person, I mean, given that they shot Charlie Kirk, and that there was definitely a "Hey Fascist" catch was written on one of them. I probably should go on too much more, because that's getting into another issue that where I have with all of this on aggrandizing the actions of the killer. But there's definitely speculation that this person was motivated by left-wing ideology. Time will tell. I'm not going to dive too deep into that, because there's also, like I said, they're kind of rambling, and just like many of these killers, they leave behind manifestos or social media trails and all that. They're nutty people. And so I'm trying to remember who, it was on the podcast that Sean Sorrentino recommended a whole bunch back when the Nashville shooters manifesto was released, and pointing out, but one of the guys said, these people don't read too much into their manifesto. These people don't know what they are and what they're thinking and feeling at that moment. So don't read into their motivation. And so that's certainly something to be said. But I will say that, unfortunately, really, we shouldn't have much to say about this because we are an apolitical podcast, and I'm not one. And Charlie Kirk was a very polarizing and very partisan figure, and so it's a shame that he died. But it's not really in our wheelhouse. But number one, he was shot, and people are going to try to make hay with that, and also we're affiliated with the Pink Pistols, and the last episode was entirely about that proposed ban of transgender individuals from owning firearms. And now there's speculation that the shooter may have been queer or had relations with trans people or all that. It's all still in speculation at this point in time.
Yes, but even though it's speculative, doesn't mean that the accusations aren't flying, and they are in fact flying across social media, very much so on the Twix. And I have talked to 3 reporters at this point, one of whom from the Tennessee Star, who was asking very pointed questions, like he was sniffing for blood, looking to see if he could pin this on us. And the other was from ABC News, who was a lot more personable. And I don't know if there are going to be more. There probably will be. But yeah, I've got a lot of things to say here. And I want to go back to last year with the first assassination attempt on Trump. And I said, regardless of your political beliefs, you do not want to start political assassinations, because not only does it start an avalanche that you can't stop, it turns the person that you killed into a martyr, and it amplifies their voice. And that's exactly what is going on here. And I disagreed with a lot of the things Charlie Kirk says, but that doesn't mean I wished him dead. I am very much a free speech advocate. I'm even for the free speech of hate speech, because I believe that the best disinfectant is sunlight. And I would much rather know, okay, these people think these really loathsome things, I'm going to stay away from them, rather than they keep it quietly in their heart and then they surprise me with it at a time when I'm vulnerable. So, Mr. Kirk is now a martyr, and his message is being amplified, and his wife is swearing some version of, oh, if you thought he was bad before, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I have my concerns as to what's going to happen next in terms of violence. Because, as has been observed, the left views violence as a dial that can be dialed up and dialed down, whereas the right is a switch, and it goes from, let's try and keep things peaceful, to, okay, I guess we're killing now. And we don't want that switch flipped. Just because we don't want people dying, we don't want civil war. And I'm really afraid that's going to happen. But then again, I've been worried about civil war in this country for about 5 years now, and fortunately it hasn't happened yet. So I would like to continue to be wrong in that regard.
No, that is an excellent, sentiment.
Thank you. And so one of the things I did today was I had to address this speculation that risked turning into a witch hunt, because people are looking to blame someone for this. And so because this happened in Utah, and because Charlie Kirk spoke out frequently against queer people, and there's some link, and like you, I don't know if it's real or alleged, that he was somewhere on the queer spectrum or knew people or whatever. people were looking for someone to blame, and they found that there was a Pink Pistols chapter in Salt Lake City, and they figure, okay, well, there's the link, because Pink Pistols, oh, that sounds like a gay militia, and this guy was radicalized, and that's why he murdered Charlie Kirk. And it's interesting they reached that conclusion, because in order to reach that, you have to pass over far more recent parts of the news that indicate that while there was, in fact, a chapter, that chapter broke off from us. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to resist the urge to read my press release. It's a very good press release, but you don't come to this podcast to listen to me read. You want me to talk to you like this, and that's what I'm trying to do. And so the short version here is that, yes, in 2020, there was a request by a then student at the University of Utah in order to reopen the Salt Lake City chapter of Pink Pistols. And we're always happy to have that happen. That's great. And in this particular case, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name because I believe it's Iranian, and I'm going to butcher it, and I don't want to butcher her name. She was originally anti-gun and worked with Bloomberg and March for Our Lives. And then I knew at one point, but I've forgotten what it was that made her change her mind. But she realized that queer people needed firearms for self-defense. And okay, that's fantastic, because someone who was a gun prohibitionist has now become a Second Amendment advocate. This is what winning looks like. And that was great for about a year. But, well, actually, I don't know if it was a full year, but you get the idea. But in the spring of 2021, this particular chapter started falling in or supporting a lot of radical left causes. And I don't want to alienate our listeners on the left. There is nothing inherently wrong with supporting a left cause. However, it is within our rules that if you are a Pink Pistols chapter, we are a single issue organization, and that organization is advocating for and teaching queer people how to shoot guns. And we don't do anything else. And if you do anything else, you dilute our message and potentially tie us to things that look bad, like this. And so she wanted to have Pink Pistols showing up at all sorts of things, which had nothing to do with our mission, like protesting some sort of construction. I guess because it was eliminating the housing for poor people or something. I don't remember. But the point being is that this had literally nothing to do with teaching queer people how to shoot. And there was a falling out. And I'm trying to be careful what I say here. But the way it resolved was that this woman decided that it was better to leave our organization than to follow our rules. And then she renamed her organization Armed Queers of Salt Lake City. And that's the point where she no longer represented Pink Pistols, and therefore this was not a problem anymore. And we formally listed the organization as defunct on our website, where it still remains listed as defunct. And so for 4 years, we had nothing to do with her or her group. So when reporters started asking me what Pink Pistols has to do with her and the alleged shooter of Charlie Kirk, I have to go, not a thing. And I almost, not quite, but almost have to prove my innocence, which is impossible, because how do you prove a negative? How do you prove that you didn't do something? But I've got enough of a paper trail that I can show that, yes, while she was affiliated with Pink Pistols for a while, that was in the past and has not been affiliated with Pink Pistols for longer. And so this is absolutely not on us. And in fact, we denounce as abhorrent not just the murder of this man, because murder of anyone is tragic, but we also denounced all of the celebrations surrounding it. Because, as we say, all murders are crimes, and if you condone crime when it's politically convenient, this is monstrous and unethical and hypocritical. And that's what I did for the entire afternoon, was craft this and resist the urge to really pour my heart and soul into it, because for something like this, it has to be very diplomatic. It has to be detached. I can't start off a press release by saying, listen up, crap for brains. Even if I desperately want to, I can't do that. And so I have multiple reworks of this in order to achieve the tone that I want, which is hopefully very precise and very professional. And I'm very pleased with it. It's very polished. It's not really my voice anymore, which is one reason why I dislike diplomacy, because I have to stop being me and I have to be diplomatic. But this is what I did, and I believe I did a good job because we have gotten good reactions on this. Now, we didn't do it for good reactions. We did it to set the record straight. But if I'm able to get, for lack of a better word, good press while setting the record straight, so much the better. So I'm going to include a link to the press release in the show notes, and it's not going to be anything you haven't heard from me already, but I think it's well crafted. And so I believe I've covered all my feelings on this very complex issue.
Yeah, no, it's a great press release. I'm glad it's in the show notes because, it really is perfectly clear and lays everything out. And again, we don't even know if this chapter has anything to do with, this group has anything to do with anything in this murder. Time will tell, and we will report on it as we know, but it's still gone out there. But to kind of shift gears a little bit, and probably cover a little bit of this later on with one of the segments, but our friend Costas Moros had a great line shortly after. Well, it's not a great line, but made a very good observation. He says, it's rare for me to hate that I was right, but this is one of those times. Straight line from Trump attempt to the shooting in New York City of the executive. I'm not going to name him. And now the shooting of Charlie Kirk. And he was specifically referencing an older post where this was after where somebody actually targeted Nick Fuentes, who is a very polarizing figure. It's common for people to say, "Oh, I didn't believe in, don't ascribe to everything that Charlie Kirk talked about," and that's everyone. Nobody agrees with me on everything. No one agrees with Aaron with everything. That's just how life works. I will say that I'm sure there's a few things that Nick Fuentes and I agree on, but you're going to have to look hard to find them. But that being said, somebody showed up at his house with a gun, was trying to goad him out. Luckily they did not, and this person was arrested, but it did appear to be, this was going to be an assassination attempt on a public figure. And we're starting to see a lot of that. And, Costas is speculating that this mightn't be, for lack of a better term, the new hotness in antisocial behavior, because, Aaron and I are both old enough to remember when it was all serial killers all the time, and people could name off all of these serial killers and how many victims they had. And we had lots and lots of movies and TV shows with serial killers as the as the antagonist, and that was the big thing. And there's still serial killers today, but we don't hear about them like we did in the 80s and 90s and probably the 70s as well. It just the news media stopped glorifying them. And I don't know if that lowered the rate of it, because again, we're dealing with very small numbers. And then Columbine happened in 99, and that was actually, they themselves were being a copycat because the news was awash with the Oklahoma City bombing, and they wanted to do that. And the bombs didn't go off. And so they said, well, I guess we'll just go into the school and shoot people. And essentially those two jerks that I will not name, but they've been named in just about every manifesto and online history of just about every spree killer ever since. And now the news has actually started to back away from putting them on the front page of every paper and glorifying them, and talking about what they've done. And so, and Aaron and I have been praising it because, like I said, we don't name the killers, but I wonder if this is the next step.
I specifically requested that we not be living in Highland's crazy years, and here we are.
Yeah. Yep. That is that. And then the last thing I wanted to do, I thought about making it kind of as a mini Weer'd Audio Fisk. But as soon as I started recording it to take the audio off of the track, he started going on his political views and all of that. And I'm just like, this is not appropriate for ACP, but, in the people that were celebrating and, or, really not being respectful for the fact that this man was murdered. One thing that I saw tossed around a lot, and I will also just say, ironically, it's one of the few things that is directly quoting Charlie Kirk. There's a lot of people that are saying things that he said without actually quoting him. And that's not me saying that he is or isn't whatever many people have been accusing him of, but if you're going to say bad things about somebody, at least, bring the receipts. But essentially the quote is I think it's worth to have the cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we have a Second Amendment. And that was frequently touted around and used as justification for him deserving to catch a bullet. And not only do I not agree with this, but also it's kind of a misrepresented quote, because it's a misrepresented quote, and also Charlie Kirk is not a Second Amendment activist like Aaron and I are, so he might be not as well versed in the best way to frame these. But he is pointing out the fact that gun deaths, and in the quote, the links in the show notes, but essentially saying that it is pure fantasy to expect gun deaths to go to zero. And he's openly saying we should strive to reduce them. We should strive to make things safer. Talks a little bit about some of the things that he thinks would be ideal for reducing gun violence. But saying that anyone who wants to reduce gun violence to zero is living in a fantasy world, which is 100% correct. One thing that he notes is that it's a price to pay is gun death for having a Second Amendment. And I would say that that's actually not that particularly accurate either, because places like England and Canada and all of the more impoverished nations are awash have plenty of gun death. It's a thing that happens in every country in the entire world. And so just because, similar to that line for Lord of the Rings, just because, just even though women don't bear swords doesn't mean they can't die on them. Even if you ban guns, it doesn't mean that the criminals aren't going to get them and the bad people aren't going to have them. And there's still violent crime and gun deaths in countries that have all but completely banned guns. So I just wanted to sprinkle a little light on that quote, and saying that no, he wasn't saying that he's fine with gun deaths. He's saying he wants to reduce them, and just saying that it's a thing that happens when you have an armed populace. And he's not wrong in that, but also in a disarmed populace, you still have that. Especially if you want to factor in governments killing their own people, which is also a thing that totally happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are not getting the gun genie back into its bottle. It's just not going to happen. And we need to acknowledge that fact.
Yeah, no, I've seen YouTubers make their own gunpowder. Cody's Lab, I think he removed it because of the YouTube rules, literally like saved his urine for like a month and made a niter bed old-fashioned style and actually made gunpowder from scratch. And I think he even might have made the gun that he loaded it into. And so it's one of those things of if you could just do this, we're not getting the genie back in the bottle. That's exactly the correct term. And Charlie Kirk had his finger on that pulse, but again, he's not a Second Amendment activist.
Well, someone who is a Second Amendment advocate is Xander Opel, and there's not a good way to introduce this. I'm just going to read the title of this segment. Dance, Blood Monkey, Dance.
Welcome to Independent Thoughts with yours truly, Xander Opel. Once again, the news is dancing in the blood of the innocent like an ape gone mad. Anti-gunners and their allies are creating a mosh pit worthy of the opening scenes of a Blade movie. It is quite sick and disgusting, creating a cycle that feeds back on itself. 40 years ago, the U.S. had a big problem with suicides, especially in the younger and more vulnerable population. Changes were made in how suicides were reported. The news didn't stop reporting on them, they just changed how the reporting was done. The sensationalism was dialed back. Compassion and professionalism were increased. The problem didn't go away completely, but the news stopped actively making the problem worse. Positive steps have been taken, such as with the 988 National Helpline in the United States. Unfortunately, the bloody revelry is still going on and splashing about when it comes to high-profile killings. Yet again, I and those around me are calling on people to not throw napalm on the trauma bonfire. Innocent people have been killed, either singly or in groups. As a nation, we must stop being eager to make political hay fertilized by that innocent blood. This isn't the tree of liberty. This is a foul, rotting thing that spreads misery and tears everyone down, leaving only death around. The families of the victims need to be shielded from the ghouls that want to puppet the bodies of the dead like marionettes, or abuse people with debilitating brain injuries by making them repeat lines without understanding. Counsel the bereaved in their time of grief, and let them heal, rather than keeping the wounds raw and dripping for decades. The pale imitation of Nero atop the bodies of classmates, the pictures and names of murderers of high schoolers arranged in some unholy shrine, these are things to be scorned and shoved away. It is all a sick quest for power that increasingly burdens those who would never have helped or encouraged the source of those evils. Don't respond to lights being snuffed out by smashing all the lamps. Help people so their lights can glow brightly again. One candle lighting another doesn't diminish the first. Have fun, be safe. I hope I gave you something to think about.
Yeah, and Xander said it right. Political ends should never come from bad deeds. And it's just where to go with this. Actually, I was reading up on the 12th Amendment of the Constitution, which is the amendment that made it so that the presidential candidates choose their own vice president. Before that, it was just the person who got the most electoral college votes got to be president. The person who got the second most got to be vice president. And I actually heard a history teacher of mine actually note that, hey, one of the things that that was bad about that is that if your guy loses but comes in second place, if somebody is to kill the president, then the second place person becomes president. So if you were a, Federalist and you wanted a Democrat Republican, So you voted for Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams wins. Thomas Jefferson was John Adams' vice president, and the two of them hated each other during the presidency. There's actually, if you look up some of their campaign ads and speeches between the two of them, they were very nasty. You think politics is negative and uncouth? Jefferson and Adams were really nasty about it, and ironically, they became friends after both of them had left politics. That was one of the speculations on why it was a good idea to make sure that the president and vice president were in the same party. And obviously, again, we shouldn't be naming or glorifying these killers lest we add fuel to the next copycat.
One of the things I really appreciated is Xander talking about the suicide clusters and how there was a surprising spate of human kindness and morality that overtook sensationalism when the media decided, yeah, we're going to tone down our coverage of these suicides because we don't want all the copycat suicides on our conscience. It's a topic that I reference frequently when it comes to these spree killers. And so, I mean, it's human. I like it when people agree with me. And it is timely to mention this again, because once again, we are making this person popular, which is very likely what they wanted. But the thing that I want to really emphasize, because I could hear it in Xander's voice, that he has had a rough day and he is struggling, because I felt that way too. But this one phrase really stuck with me. And when he said, "Don't respond to lights being snuffed out by smashing all the lamps." And I consider myself some version of a writer. I am not a professional by any means, but I have some meager wordsmithing skills. And that's a really good turn of phrase. I don't particularly know why it resonates with me, but I really like it. It's got a poetry to it that I appreciate. And so, Xander, I want to say well done. That particular line moved me, and with your permission, I'm going to use it. I don't quite know where I'm going to use it yet, but I'm going to find a way to use it.
Yeah, it was a good one, and it tied in very, very nicely to the previous topic. So thank you, Xander, for submitting that. And shifting gears slightly, because honestly speaking, we got sidetracked by the by the trans ban proposal, and I didn't end up getting to use this, and it was kind of getting old because it's a bit of a timely audio Fisk, but it kind of got a new breath of light with this current climate, and I'll reframe it as a tale of being cautious about what you put out on the internet. Okay, this is by far the most bizarre Fisk I've ever done. I'll let former CNN anchor Jim Acosta do the introductions.
But first, today is August the 4th. That happens to be the birthday of my first guest. Joaquin Oliver died in the Parkland school shooting in Florida back in 2018, but his parents, Manuel and Patricia, have created an AI version of their son to deliver a powerful message on gun violence. Manny asked me if I'd like to be the first reporter to have the chance to interview Joaquin.
Yep, Weer'd Fisk perennial and shameless gun prohibitionist Manuel Oliver is back. And he's one-upping a horrible project he did back in 2020. In 2020, he used AI to create a CGI version of his killed son, Joaquin, in order to urge people to vote for Joe Biden. He was later arrested by Capitol Police in 2022 in a stunt to get Biden to support gun control, and again in 2023. So I guess that aged. But now he's back with another AI puppet of his son. The first one was in horrible taste. This one is far worse.
All right, if you want to share anything or have questions, I'm all ears. Just let me know.
At least the 2020 version, he sounded human. This version, all he sounds like is the Gemini blurb at the top of a Google search.
Joaquin, it's Jim Acosta. I was wondering if you could tell me what happened to you.
I appreciate your curiosity. I was taken from this world too soon due to gun violence while at school. It's important to talk about these issues so we can create a safer future for everyone. What would you like to know more about?
The voice is all over the map, too. And the monotone leaves no doubt that you're talking to a computer. And he keeps asking if Jim wants to know more. Do you know what that reminds me of?
Here's a tip. Aim for the nerve stem and put it down for good.
Would you like to know more?
Come on, I'm not wrong.
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, Joaquin. We definitely need more of that.
If I may respond by quoting the bard, it's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Seriously, that's a ton of empty gun control buzzwords and nothing of substance. And that's all the gun control talk here. But I still have more to Fisk.
I would like to know more about you. Can you tell us about yourself? What did you like to do?
I'm all about love, laughter, and living life to the fullest. I cherish my family and friends and always try to spread joy wherever I go. Though my life was cut short, I want to keep inspiring others to connect and advocate for change.
Again, the voice tone and cadence is the furthest from human. Also, these statements are like completely empty. Either these lines are prompted by Manuel Oliver or AI just made them up, making this farce even less of a likeness of his dead son. Also, I didn't mention this at the start, but this interview is done in a cutaway, which implies it wasn't done in real time with the show. Also, since there's animation, bad and poorly synced, but it's still animation, I suspect it would take a good while to create these clips earnestly. So likely they're pre-rendered clips. And Jim Acosta is asking pre-arranged questions, which suggests this whole interview is really much more of a skit or a sketch than anything else.
Hey, Joaquin, what about movies or TV shows? Was there a movie that you liked?
I love a good movie. One that really resonates with me is Remember the Titans. It's all about teamwork, overcoming adversity, and the power of unity. It's inspiring. What about you? Do you have a favorite movie or show?
Oh, I'm a big Star Wars fan for sure.
Star Wars is such an epic saga. The adventures, the characters, and that iconic music are unforgettable. Do you have a favorite character?
Oh, it's got to be Luke Skywalker. I love Luke Skywalker. What about you?
So Joaquin was a basketball player. I wonder if he actually liked this in life. It's a great movie, but it also came out before he was born. The Star Wars bit just sounds like someone had a text-to-speech program read the Wikipedia page for the movies. And Luke Skywalker being your favorite character is so basic. And Joaquin picked Yoda, which is also basic. FYI, my favorite Star Wars character, hands down, is Jabba the Hutt. He is the sci-fi version of a James Bond villain. As I said, we've already heard all the gun control talking points. So let's jump to when Jim cuts to Manuel Oliver.
All right, and joining me now to talk about this is Manuel Oliver. Manny, great to see you as always. I have to say, I'm kind of speechless as to the technology there. I mean, it was so insightful, and I really felt like I was speaking with Joaquin. It's just a beautiful thing.
Jim keeps trying to sell it. Man worked for CNN and likely did hundreds of interviews. So pretending this was anything but an abomination and a shameful disrespect for the dead is just embarrassing for him.
But today is a special day. Joaquin should have been turning 25 years old. He won't, but we thought that it will create some more impact, kind of things that we have been doing if we bring this AI Joaquin to life.
This I won't criticize. Birthdays and anniversaries are tough for those who've experienced loss, and especially as a father, my heart goes out to them. Still, that only goes so far. Just because your dad beat your mom does not give you an excuse to beat your wife. Just because their son was killed in a school shooting, mostly due to the incompetence of law enforcement, doesn't mean you get to blame lawful gun owners. Nor does it mean you get to parade an AI puppet of your dead son.
Well, and I for the first time, and you and I have had so many conversations, Manny, I feel like for the first time I've really gotten to know him. And what strikes me is he's just a kid. He's just a kid from Florida who loves basketball and movies, and that's what a lot of our kids are like.
Jim, stop. This wasn't a kid. This was a search engine with bad animation. Further, I doubt anything about this was particularly Joaquin. And it was more of what Manuel Oliver wanted.
Yeah, and I want to also mention that I understand that this is AI. I don't want anyone to think that I am in some way trying to bring my son back. It's sadly I can't.
Right.
I wish I could.
I also can't fault this. And for as much bad intentions I put on Manuel Oliver, I think he'd trade it all to bring his son back.
And now Joaquin is going to start having followers. It's not Manny. It's not Patricia. He's going to start uploading videos. This is just the beginning. And I heard this from tech guys that have other intentions, good intentions, but other intentions. And they all say that this is just the beginning of AI. So I'm very excited with this project.
And I meant that. But since he can't bring his son back, he's going to make an abomination and see if he can make money off of it. Okay, that's really disgusting.
Yeah, just a remarkable expression of one family's love for their son. Joaquin Oliver, Guac, he should be here today. He should be here today. There are so many other kids who were lost in mass shootings in this country who should be here today.
This isn't love. This is exploitation. I hate that while I agree that Joaquin should be alive today, I wonder how his parents would treat him if they were willing to do something as horrible as this.
Say how much I really appreciate this family, what they've done in the fight to combat gun violence in this country, in the fight to stop school shootings and mass shootings in this country. They are absolutely heroic. And it was a real pleasure for me and just a real honor for me that the family would come to me and say, hey, Jim, would you want to do something like this?
Except the discussions of firearms and policies was just one clip. And that clip was just empty buzzwords. So that leaves me to explain my motives. If so little gun control was discussed, why Fisk it? To talk about the mentality of the gun prohibitionists. They are willing to cross any boundaries if it means they can restrict your access or rights to use firearms. We see the same with Gabby Giffords being paraded around like a show dog by her husband Mark Kelly and the lobbyists at the Giffords anti-gun group. And Jim Acosta is trying to reclaim his glory since he was let go from CNN, and I think he thought the combination of gun control and AI interview was going to be the hot ticket. It was not. I pulled this audio off of his YouTube where Jim is getting dragged in the comments. There are also a few articles about the interview and how it's ethically very questionable. And the kicker was, I checked out Jim's account on Bluesky, which is much more friendly to left-wing political actors and much more hostile to the Second Amendment. And even there, they're calling out Jim and Manuel for being ghouls. The bottom line is, gun prohibitionists aren't like you and I, and their priorities are very different, as is their concern about their fellow man. Those are your anti-gun talking points and a few rebuttals to combat them.
Yeah, when I saw this, I had a moment of deja vu where I went, wait, we covered this years ago. And then I scrolled down to the show notes, and yeah, there you go. Episode 125. And we're on episode 361 for those paying attention. And it was titled Deepfake Necromantic Blood Dancing. And yeah, that's what this is. And I have to agree with your assessment, Weer'd. This was really creepy because sometimes it would just be monotone and expressionless. Other times the voice would be pitched upwards, and that didn't seem appropriate. The thing that really got me, and was definitely a tip-off that it was AI. I mean, they didn't try to hide it, but I have been interacting a lot with ChatGPT just for the heck of it and to bounce ideas off of, because it's nice to have an AI to serve as, hey, I've got this weird idea, tell me what you think of it, and that way I don't feel guilty about, like, bothering friends when they're trying to work. But one of the things I've noticed about AI in general, and specifically ChatGPT, is that it's hardwired to ask you a question once it has done what you asked. And if you're asking a philosophical question, it'll ask you a question in order to keep the conversation going. If it has done something for you, it will then ask, well, hey, would you like me to do something else? I have helped you proofread this document. Would you like me to save the changes as a PDF? And that's really what I was getting from this when the virtual Joaquin would answer the guy's question and then immediately follow up with, well, what do you think? Well, what's your favorite movie? What's such and such? And it was just so reflexive. And I go, I've seen that before. So, yeah, the previous version, because it was a performance and it was scripted, it was unsettling, but there was some degree of, I don't know if humanity is the right word for it, but, someone crafted it. Whereas this one is just, it feels like it's just pure responsive code. And it is a lot more of a mockery of a human being that I find really disturbing.
Yeah. And again, Manuel Oliver's allegedly saying that he's going to launch this thing onto social media platforms, probably as a means to make money and to push his agenda, when his son is actually dead, and there's not really any information to say that he might agree with his father, or if he did agree with his father on gun control as a kid, maybe his mind may have eventually been persuaded. So this is, it's in poor taste. And much like how we're seeing a lot of work from either side on denouncing the people celebrating at Charlie Kirk's death, even if you may be someone who overall is probably going to be better off in a world without Charlie Kirk, at least as far as the fact that his political rhetoric was not something that made you safe. This is, it's good to see that so many people in so many different political in the political spectrum were denouncing Jim Acosta and Manuel Oliver for creating this abomination.
So weird. Who aren't abominations?
That's exactly how I was hoping you would go with that. We're talking about our listeners. No, you're not abominations. You're wonderful. Each and every one of you. And thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it, because that's the whole point of doing podcasts, is people listen. So we want to thank each and every one of our listeners, but we want to give a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. To become a patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast and sign up. It's not a tip jar. We're not begging. It's a store. You go and you can pick up, you subscribe, and then you have access to really hundreds at this point of ACP blooper reels. We've got the ACP film tracks. You can search over all sorts of great movies, and the ACP mag dump.
And in addition, once you have listened to us, please rate us so that we get the good reviews and number go up and maybe get more listeners. And so rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, because we're not your parents. Do what you want. And share the show with your friends, both online and off. Because again, the more you share, the more listeners, happier Aaron.
You gotta have a happier Aaron. And if by chance you want a little bit more Weird Beard in your life, I've got a blog at weirdworld.com. That's WEERDworld.com. And you can also hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
So there's a saying, I think, from the Bible about how it is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. And we here at Sort of Calibers Podcast agree. Don't respond to the lights being snuffed out by smashing all the lamps. Instead, light the candle for everyone else. The way we respond is assorted, but our podcast encourages you to choose light over darkness. Good night.
Good night, everybody.